Hello, Yoga Hippie here. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back if you've been here before. So my name is Christina, and I've been living nomadically for like 5 years, and I'm currently attempting to make Gulfport my home, which is in Florida, and it's been going a lot better the last week or so. I've been having some hard times, but the last week has been so much better. Also, you might hear a cute little cat. Actually, he's a cute and big cat, but his name is Carlos, and I am cat sitting. Normally, I go to people's homes to do that, but this cat owner wanted me to board him, so I am, and we're just trying this out. So, when I wanted to finish talking about meditation today, I wanted to tell my Vipassana experience. So, Vipassana, I'm trying to figure out how to tell the story without it being like a half an hour long. Okay. So I went to Mexico. You can go a lot of different places, but I chose Mexico, and I went to a 10-day silent meditation retreat. I'm a very chatty person, so this was kind of an odd choice for me. And it wasn't because I thought it was odd. Everybody else thought it was odd, right? They thought it was funny. Like, I was going to have a hard time being quiet, but I was ready because I had been a single full-time mom, and I was done raising my kids. They had just graduated that year, my youngest, and anyway, everything was changing in my life, and I wanted to learn a different type of meditation because I had been having hard times with my transcendental meditation. So I went for a 10-day silent meditation retreat in Mexico, the Vipassana meditation retreat. So basically, I'll tell you, like, the schedule is pretty intense. It was 4 a.m. was the first bell, and then we went to bed at 10 o'clock at night. And outside of breakfast with an hour and a half-ish break, and then some 15-minute breaks that they would give us 15 minutes during some of these really long meditations in the meditation hall. We would get like a few minutes to go outside and stretch, and then we would have dinner and get we had lunch. We had a lunch break that was 2 hours long. Outside of that, and then the few minutes we got for dinner, we were in meditations. And the very end of the night was, the last one was a meditation, but also more of a teaching video. And the rest of it was all audio streamed in over speakers. So, they take everything away from you. So no books, no electronics, no jewelry, none of that stuff. And so somewhere in there, you're really silent more than 10 days, but it's like half of another day and half of another day. So it's really like 11 days. But anyway, so I go on this retreat, and I got to tell you right off the bat, it was very life-changing and very, very, very intense. Probably to this date, one of the most intense things I've ever done. And I'm going to tell you why. I'm going to tell you my story. So basically, we go through all these hours and hours and hours of meditation. The first 3.5 days, we are learning and focusing on just this concept of focusing on our breath, traveling in and out of our nose. So, man, I don't know. I wanted that to be over because I wanted to learn Vipassana, right? And then once Vipassana started, I wanted to just go back to breathing in and out of my nose. And quite honestly, I do that a lot now. I do a lot of mindfulness meditations, which I really enjoy, which is basically Vipassana. And then also this Anahata, breathing in and out of my nose. So day 3.5 or 4, like the very beginning of it, I could not freaking stay awake at the first day or two. I was just having some major problems staying awake. I mean, part of it was the schedule, and I had been traveling, and anyway. I ended up having my own room, which was not necessarily normal. There were only a handful of us that got our own room. They separate the girls from the guys, and there were probably about 80 of us. And then they sit you on the floor at first, and then later, like the day before the Vipassana started, the actual meditation of that. So like on day 3 or whatever it was, I ended up getting a chair because I couldn't sit still. And this is part of why this retreat was so life-changing, was that I had a contracted muscle in my hip. It's your hip flexors or your psoas, but this muscle, it attaches to your leg, and it branches off into 3 different muscles, and 2 of them are attached to your spine. And anyway, it's a big deal, and I couldn't get it to release, and I spent hundreds of dollars on it, and and just did everything in the world that I could to get it released. And everybody kept telling me it was emotional, and I just kept blowing them off because that seemed a little crazy to me, because it was just really causing me a lot of problems in my back for like, and my leg and my hip for like, I don't know, years, like 4 years, 3 years, something like that. So by this point, I had probably been 13, 14, 15, 16. Yeah, like 4 years I had been dealing with this. And I had started healing, but my psoas was still contracted and still giving me problems and still making it hard for me to sit. So they let me sit in a chair. And I think that was really key. I had to get permission from the teacher for that. But anyway, so we go in and we're finally learning this Vipassana, and I revert back to not being able to stay awake. And so this is upsetting me, right? Because I want to hear the Vipassana so I can learn it, right? And do the Vipassana. And so anyway, I'm getting so frustrated, and they told us we can't move a muscle. Like, we're as much as we can to just avoid moving anything. Like, if you got an itch, don't scratch it. It's all part of the meditation, right? Especially when you're first learning it. So I'm sitting up against the wall in this plastic chair, and I'm just, my whole body's still except my head. I keep flinging it forward, I'm like, oh my God, I can't stay awake. And then finally, I don't know, something like outside of me like took over my experience, and I was like, my brain became like a typewriter, because we started out like with a little rectangle, and then we go from this rectangle that we're scanning the subtle subtle vibrations in your body. You're just kind of noticing what you feel in those areas, and then you move from like this section to this section, and this section to this section, and you go down your body. All of a sudden, I couldn't get much past like here, all of a sudden my brain is just like, and I remember thinking for a second, like, what is happening right now? And then my brain answered back like, you don't have time to worry about it, And then I just did this Vipassana, and I didn't move for like 2.5 hours. And at the end of it, we were excused to go to dinner, and I remember thinking we looked like zombies walking across the lawn to the dining hall, and we were like sitting there trying to eat my fruit, because we didn't really get much for dinner. It was just fruit and tea, and I wasn't even hungry. I was just like, oh, I need to go lay down. And this is where everything changed. everything. So I go to my room, and I lay down on my bed, and I was lucky that I had my own room, because after this moment, it was really beneficial. I would have been so distracting to so many people. But so I laid down, and I took this deep breath, and I had this little tear come out my corner of my eye, and I was like, oh, well, I don't know what I'm crying about, but I should probably let that out, whatever it is. So I wasn't really thinking I was going to cry, I just like let the emotion flow, right? I took another breath, and when I exhaled, like another couple of tears came out, and with it, my psoas released, this muscle. And when it did it, it clicked, and it was almost like I could feel it unwind, like it went click, click. And then after that second click, my leg shifted, because also my leg had been shorter than my right leg was shorter than my left one, because my psoas was so tight, it was pulling my leg up into my hip, into my pelvis. Anyway, it released down, and I definitely felt a massive shift in my hip. And I immediately lifted up my knee and turned my leg out like I was gonna sit cross-legged. I externally rotated my leg to see how that felt, because that was a really hard move to do with my leg like that. And it just didn't feel the same at all. And I was like, oh my God. And then I started to sob. And I've never been able to tell this story without getting emotional for so many reasons. And you'll know why when I get done here in a minute. But so all these emotions started to flow out of me, and I was so grateful that my psoas had just released. And also all this sorrow was accompanying that. And it was sorrow and grief, really terrible. I don't know. I think those were like the worst feelings for me to feel. And I don't know if it's just because of my dad dying when I was almost 16, and my grandma's death when I was 13 was fairly traumatic because of how it affected my dad. And anyway, I just seen all these people die, and I knew and understood that grief was really icky to feel at a very young age, and a powerful emotion because of my dad, seeing my dad so heartbroken over his mom passing. And I had never seen him cry, right? But until that day. But anyway, I had been carrying around all this grief and sorrow, and all my tears were about a decision that I had made in 2001, December of 2001. So I had been carrying around all this sorrow and guilt and shame and unforgiveness for leaving my family. I was married to a minister, and I was a stay-at-home mom, and man, I just shoved down all the feelings that I had about relapsing. I had relapsed a year before I left my ex-husband, and I had just convinced myself that everybody would be better off without me. So I ended up just leaving my entire family, my 2 beautiful children, and my husband at the time. And I just kind of went off the deep end. Well, there's no kinda. I did. I went completely crazy. Like, my life was a 180, and my poor children were caught up in this, obviously. And I was a very devoted mother up until that point. And I was as devoted as I could be after that, but I was very upset with myself over what I had done. I felt tremendous amount of shame and guilt and remorse from the moment I did that, when I left and moved into my apartment, like literally that moment. But I didn't want to feel that, so I just pushed it down, and then I carried it around with me along with all the grief from my dad dying, and all the grief that I felt about my family being destroyed. It wasn't all me, right, that destroyed it, but I definitely started that ball rolling in a different direction when I left, right? So now my kids have forgiven me, and they're amazing, and because of Vipassana, I really have learned to start forgiving myself, right? But what came up was all those feelings, and oh my God, I couldn't quit crying. And when I say I couldn't quit crying, I'm not joking. Like, I had to leave the meditation hall, repeatedly over the next 5 days. The next 5 days were so intense. I just cried and cried and cried. I've never cried so much in my life, and I've never felt so sad since my dad died. Oh my God, it was so awful. I can't even explain to you. I cried in the meadow. I cried in my room. I buried my face in my pillow. I could not quit crying. And so I didn't know what was going on, because also in conjunction with this, right, we're not able to talk, and all of our distractions are removed, right? So not able to even do yoga. We were told we couldn't even do yoga, and I just couldn't quit crying. And then I felt crazy, because when I would go to try to meditate, right, which is like, you want to feel like that's going to help you cope, right? Because it's the only thing you have to do right there. You couldn't write either. There was no journaling allowed. So every time I would close my eyes, I don't know how to explain it. It was like somebody flipped a switch and turned on like all the noise in the world in my head. And it was just the fastest thoughts that I've ever had in my life, like a never ending stream of just crazy thoughts. Like if you could have one thought on top of another thought at the same time, that's how it was. And that's how it felt. It felt really intense. I had nowhere to run and nowhere to get away from it all, right? So it's so hard to talk about it because it was so intense. It was so hard. But I just had to let it all out. But I really was wanting to leave, right? I wanted to leave. And I knew that 2 people had left, or three people had left already, the retreat. Oh my God, it was so crazy. So finally I decided I needed to talk to someone. So you could sign up to talk with the counselor for 5 minutes, right? During the lunch break. So I did that on day 7. I should have done it way sooner because I went from day 4, day 3.5 or 4 until day 7, feeling insane and not being able to meditate and just wanting to leave and crying constantly. And nobody else was crying like this. I just could not keep it in. It was just, it was like a fire hydrant that you see that gets unlocked in your neighborhood or whatever. It was just crazy. So anyway, my teacher told me that what had happened, I just, only had 5 minutes. So I told her I had done this really terrible thing and that suddenly I had this response in my body that was crazy that released all this, and then I just couldn't stop crying, and then I also couldn't stop thinking, and I couldn't meditate. I couldn't close my eyes, and I was just feeling really upset about everything, and I wanted to go. And she said, she encouraged me to stay, and she said that when you have a massive release like that, you can have what is called a storm. And that's a good description for it because that's how I felt. I felt like I was at war with my mind, and my feelings were uncontrollable. And she told me, which was hard, right? So what I was crying about was leaving my kids, and I kept seeing my son's face in my mind a lot. When I would close my eyes, I would see his 3-year-old face. And it just made me so sad that I had done that to them, And anyway, so sorry. I still have a lot of guilt over it, what I did to my kids, and how it's affecting them in their adult years with their relationships. Because I definitely created abandonment issues with them or for them without meaning to, right? So I don't have tissues, so I'm using my little rag here. Anyway, tears are just a buildup of energy that release out of your eyeballs. It's your body's way of releasing, like, basically, I'm having so much emotion that I can't contain it, and now it's releasing itself in the form of tears, right? So you can release emotions a lot of different ways. So it's okay. Crying is okay. It's just makes so many people uncomfortable, but it's hard to talk when you're crying like that. Anyway, I had all these emotions, and I decided I would stay, and I went through the rest of the retreat, and oh man, I was so upset because I wanted to get there and I wanted to have peace in my mind, and instead I had no peace in my mind. It was like the opposite of peace in my mind. And basically she told me to continue to do the work, and that it would be okay. So she was right. But at the end of the retreat, this is also, I want to tell this part and then I'll be done. But at the end of the retreat, the day that we were going to be able to talk, they call it the code of silence, right? We were going to be able to break our silence, our noble silence is what they called it. Anyway, we were sitting in back there, and I was just pissed off, right? Because I was just pissed off about being so upset the whole time, and I was not having any equanimity with, I'm hoping to say that word right. It's such a hard word to say for me. Anyway, I wasn't at peace with my meditation and my brain, and, you know, all those things were giving me a lot of problems. And I was having all these problems, right? All these emotions. So anyway, the last day they were like, yeah, okay, so now we're going to let you come out of the meditation hall, and, you know, you can go to your dorm room, and then we're going to all meet in the meditation, or not the meditation, the dining hall, right? And as soon as it was done, I was at the back door, right? I just took off out the back, and I was pissed off. I was so pissed off. And I didn't know why. I was like, why are you so angry? And I was just like, I'm just so freaking mad, you know? And I was just like, I don't want to talk. And then I walked down this hallway, this really long hallway, and went to the bathroom. And then I came out and went to the dining hall, and it was all the people there talking. All the people talking, and they were laughing, and just like we had never been quiet. And so, like, I'm still mad. I'm still not, I don't want to talk. I remember thinking, while I was peeing, like, I have nothing to say. I have nothing to talk about. Like, I don't want to talk right now. And I was there literally in that space for like maybe not even 10 minutes that I was in that area, and everybody was trying to talk to me, and I couldn't form sentences hardly, and I was having a really hard time adapting to that. I left and went to the meadow, and the lady that was our house manager lady, I talked to her for a minute, and she shared the wall with me. She had heard me crying for days, you know, and she told me that what I was going through was very normal. All of it was very good, and that people come to Vipassana many times looking for an experience like I had. And that they would have their moment where they couldn't be quiet, or that where they didn't want to be talking now that they were able to talk. That I was just processing so many things that it was normal, right? So, man, I just want to say that my hip has continued to heal, and my back is great now, and between sleeping on the floor and that Vipassana retreat, it healed like 6 years of problems in my body. And also I got to get a head start on forgiving myself for, you know, a choice that I made when I was a very sad person. So, and then I got to share that experience with both my children, and, you know, they were older at that point. They were graduated people, like, you know, adults. And, I don't know, it's been a great thing. So I would say that as much as I appreciated Vipassana and that retreat, I'm not ready to go back. It was so intense. And lots of people were excited and wanted to turn around and go back and serve. And I was just like, no, I'm ready to leave here. Anyway, so if you're thinking about Vipassana, I would say do it. Because ultimately it was a real big help to me. And anyway, I wanted to share it, and don't really like to talk about what I did back in 2001 because I don't want people to judge me over it, and it's embarrassing that I did that, and it makes me upset, and I want to defend myself and explain to people what a great mom I was before I did that. And anyway, I know that I'm a good mom, and that I was a good mom, and that I had some problems. And so I want to say that to you, if you happen to be somebody who's made some big mistakes, or I don't even want to call it a mistake, right? It was just a choice I made, right? That had some massive consequences for me and everyone else. And, you know, it's okay. Everything's better now. And I want to encourage you not to hold yourself, you know, not to hold those things over yourself, to hold them over your head, to find a way, whether it's a Vipassana retreat or counseling or EMDR or whatever that rapid eye movement therapy is. And I mean, there's lots of things. Maybe you want to do magic mushrooms. I don't know, you know, what you want to do to help yourself, but there are definitely lots of ways to do it. So I hope that you will have a great day. And if you liked my video, like it, please, and subscribe for more. I'm gonna try to post another video next week about some other things that are kind of heavy, but they're just things about life, which is basically what this channel is about. All kinds of things about life and my, I guess, yeah, different things I've done in my life to help myself. So I wish you all the love and peace, and I hope that you have a great day.